Candace Owens recently made a daring assertion. The truth has been lurking in plain sight, and Meghan's pregnancy claim doesn't add up. Here's the twist, though, that makes everything different. It's not just Candace speaking. This time, information that were never supposed to escape the walls of Portland Hospital, where Meghan claims to have given birth, have been discreetly disclosed by an insider. These truths shatter the fairy story. After hearing them, you'll start to see why so many people are now posing the same query. What actually took place on the night of Archie's birth? To help you better grasp everything, let's go back. Spare. Do you recall Harry's memoir? It was meant to provide an honest and unvarnished view behind the royal curtains. However, one statement that subtly exploded everything was hidden within all the passion and familial conflict. Meghan gave delivery in Portland Hospital, had 2 epidurals, and returned home to Frogmore Cottage in 2 hours. 2 hours. That sounds quick to most people. That seems impossible to anyone who has ever given birth. However, such timetable is not only dubious, but also implausible to medical experts and hospital insiders. Let's simplify it. On a good day, the trip from Portland Hospital to Frogmore Cottage takes 1 hour. Therefore, the birth must have occurred if they were at home 2 hours after the delivery. After 2 epidurals, Meghan recovered. You did hear me, yes. 2 epidurals, not just one. In less than 60 minutes, the physicians kept an eye on her. Nurses examined the infant. Discharge paperwork was finished, luggage were packed, security was set up, and they drove an hour home. Not feasible, not safe from a medical standpoint, and not allowed by hospital policy. The narrative is made much more bizarre by the epidural detail. Unlike buffet appetizers, an epidural is not something you receive twice. One catheter is inserted into the spine. It is quite uncommon to even change that catheter in the middle of labor. Since 2 epidurals would entail 2 distinct spinal operations, each needing setup, placement, testing, and monitoring, Harry's allegation that Meghan had 2 physicians aroused questions. A lady cannot have 2 epidurals, a full delivery, postpartum checkups, and a 1-hour drive home in less than 2 hours, not even in a royal world. There was no chronology here. The screenplay was intended to seem dramatic, but it didn't reflect reality. And when we looked at the site itself, the suspicions became much more profound, because there isn't a Portland hospital like the one Harry described. Prior to Meghan, Portland Hospital was well known for having one of the nation's most exclusive maternity facilities, not just for its opulence. This is the reality, though, that you never see on magazine covers. The architecture of Portland Hospital differs from that of a typical emergency hospital. It lacks the busy emergency room you see on TV, as well as a large trauma center. It's a specialized facility. It manages complicated maternity care, neonatal crises, and upscale lodging. But Portland has a clear system in place if something goes wrong that goes beyond its capabilities. The patient is swiftly transferred. Now contrast it with Harry's description. A spa-like tub, a birthing ball, candles flickering in a dark, peaceful room, and a comfortable atmosphere with little intervention. Portland does not manage high-risk births in this manner. Portland does not treat epidurals in this manner. Furthermore, Portland does not handle any situation involving pain medicine in this manner. No one is left alone with nitrous oxide, the source added. There isn't a hidden elevator. There are no escape options via rear doors. No patient with 2 epidurals leaves the facility like it's a hotel lobby, and there are no 2-hour discharges. Therefore, the question becomes straightforward if the place Meghan described was darkly illuminated like a health retreat, if candles flickered gently throughout delivery, and if Harry was accidentally or recreationally ingesting nitrous oxide. What precise location were they? Because the Portland hospital that Harry describes is not the Portland hospital that actually exists. The medical information aroused suspicions if the time frame did. Because something became brutally evident when medical professionals examined Harry's account of what happened. The methods he outlined are not consistent with actual medicine. First, let's talk about epidurals. Meghan had 2, Harry insisted. 2 distinct epidurals, not just one. However, it is not how epidurals operate. When a woman receives one, a catheter, a small tube is gently inserted into her spine. Doctors just change the medicine after the tube is inserted. Higher, lower, gentler, and stronger doses. Everything is managed from a single line. It doesn't need to be taken out. The process doesn't need to be repeated. Harry says that in order for Meghan to have 2 epidurals, a doctor would have had to take out the first catheter, restart the entire spinal operation, put in a new catheter, test it, and keep a tight eye on her while she was in active labor. That hardly ever occurs, particularly in a private hospital where safety takes precedence over haste. Only in an emergency, which calls for paperwork, escalations, and specialist personnel, would a second epidural be administered. Harry, however, compares it to casually placing an order for 2 cups of tea. The laughing gas follows. Harry tells a humorous story about breathing in all of the nitrous oxide that was intended for Meghan. However, nitrous tanks are not left out like balloons at a birthday celebration in actual hospitals. They only allow nurses to handle them, and they keep them labeled and secured. It wouldn't be amusing if a patient's companion drained the tank. That would be a major breach of hospital security. In Harry's account, however, no nurse intervened to stop him. He was not rectified by a physician. Instead than depicting a high-risk delivery in a tightly controlled private hospital, the sequence plays like a comedic act. This is where things get problematic, because when a tale misrepresents basic medical facts, it makes people wonder, were these mistakes innocent or are they signs of a story that wasn't real to begin with? And just as the medical inconsistencies start to mount, the story's royal side starts to show its own flaws. The British royal family employs more etiquette than any other family in the world. Everything is planned. All of this is documented. Additionally, the law is straightforward and ironclad when a royal woman gives birth. The Queen needs to be informed right away. That's not superstition. It's not customary. That is the formal royal protocol. Prince William, Princess Kate, Princess Diana, and all previous royal births underwent the same process. However, individuals that examine this case claim that Meghan experienced something out of the ordinary. There was no notification to the Queen. No notice, no call, no royal indication that a baby was about to be born. Someone would have broken centuries-old precedent to keep the Queen in the dark if Meghan had actually been in labor at Portland Hospital and given birth to Archie while under royal protection. A newborn in line for the throne is more than just a family member. Thus, it is absurd. They serve as a national emblem. Their birth is accurately documented. Documentation, witnesses, and timelines all important. But all of a sudden, things became unclear for Meghan's delivery. Details were inconsistent, dates were hazy, and protocol disappeared. One crucial question is raised when something this significant disappears. Unless the narrative they were given didn't align with reality, why would royal employees disregard the rulebook? Meghan's own explanations also started to change when royal protocols were disregarded. 3 times, not just once or twice. Meghan didn't provide a definitive response when people questioned why Archie's birth wasn't reported to the media. Rather, she offered 3. She began by stating that she didn't want to obstruct a hospital emergency door. However, there isn't a public emergency entry at Portland Hospital that may be blocked. She went on to say that the press was prejudiced and didn't deserve a picture. An explanation that is significantly different from the first, yet still highly emotive. The third version followed. She said that while they informed the media, they just failed to turn up. For a single instant, 3 reasons. 3 contradictory stories. 3 contradictory answers that lead to more ambiguity than clarity. Furthermore, none of them accurately depict what occurs after a royal kid is delivered. Because official routes, rather than speculation or waiting around, are always used to alert the press. Investigators can quickly identify this pattern of shifting narratives, which makes it significant. When there are several interpretations for a single occurrence, it usually indicates that the true one has not yet been revealed. At this point, the tale takes a startling turn, with the largest fissure yet to be revealed. People could have dismissed Meghan's account if it had merely been unique. However, The story took a completely different turn when the physicians learned that she was in her late 30s when Archie was born. Because a pregnancy above 35 is referred to as a geriatric pregnancy in medical terminology. It's a harsh yet true word. A vast range of facts, including increased surveillance, more scans, closer supervision, lower risks, and comprehensive action plans, accompany that word. Put another way, no physician would advise a high-risk mother to give birth in a spa-style setting. However, Harry spoke of a calm, dreamlike scene with low candles, a bathtub, a birthing ball, and a warm, pleasant ambience. That's what a low-risk natural birth looks like. It's not the ideal setting for a lady with 2 epidurals, a late 30s pregnancy, and suspected preeclampsia, which I'm currently learning about. There is so much to tell, I assure you. A labor that was moving quickly. The scenario Harry described felt more like a carefully chosen aesthetic than a clinical reality, according to hospital insiders acquainted with Portland's high-risk treatments. Bright illumination, monitors, quick access to intervention tools, on-call professionals, and close observation are necessary for high-risk bursts. When a delivery team is getting ready to deal with medical issues, candles and birthing balls are not typical. Thus, the identical question comes up once more. Why does the narrative seem more like a wellness marketing than a medical incident? And when we consider the most serious of them, the purported preeclampsia, the discrepancies only become more pronounced. Preeclampsia is not a mild illness. It is unexpected, unpleasant, and hazardous. Seizures, organ failure, in extreme situations, death are possible outcomes. Mothers can only be kept safe by prompt medical action, continuous observation, hourly monitoring, magnesium sulfate infusions, and no early discharge, according to sources with first-hand knowledge of actual situations. One hospital insider who gave delivery in Portland really talked about her own experience with preeclampsia. Her blood pressure shot up to a scary 23130. Magnesium sulfate, a potent medication that burns as it passes through the veins, was administered to her by doctors in a hurry. Under bright lights, nurses kept a close eye on her and checked her vital signs every hour. She didn't return home that day. Candles were not lit by her. She didn't leave the hospital looking like she had just undergone a spa treatment. Here's why that contrast is important. Meghan's postpartum schedule is rendered impossible if she truly experienced preeclampsia. Because Meghan was traveling abroad, taking lengthy flights, going to events, taking vacations, walking the red carpet, flying again, and exhibiting no outward signs of recuperating from one of the most serious pregnancy problems just weeks after Archie was born. In the meanwhile, relaxation and regulated settings are necessary for preeclampsia recovery. New moms are closely monitored since doctors maintain that high blood pressure can suddenly surge after birth. However, Meghan's actual schedule appeared to be quite different. The account starts to fall apart under its own weight when you combine this discrepancy with the time frame, epidurals, hospital irregularities, and procedural holes. Additionally, it breaks considerably more quickly because to the little cracks that are hardly discussed. Every major narrative includes little aspects that, upon closer inspection, appear innocuous. Furthermore, these minor nuances tell more about Meghan than the major ones. First, let's talk about the Nando chicken issue. Harry said he sneaked out to get Nando for the hospital room at 2 in the morning. However, employees who are acquainted with Portland services claim that Portland has private chefs available around the clock. Nando shuts at around 11 p.m. However, meals may be purchased at any time of day. In addition to the fact that Nando was closed, Meghan could have had anything she wanted from Portland's private dining service without Harry having to leave the premises.